is the nail in the coffin for that catcher. We won't be seeing... Oh, no, we will be seeing him again.
This is Blood
Today we have a Week 8 Division 4 game from the Blood and Tears Perpetual League, the penultimate game of the season. My name is Jurassics and I am the head coach of Pointy Ear United, an Elven Union Team, and we are playing Snufkinny, the third and final Necromantic Horror team in this league. The Guys and Ghouls team is currently without a win, and I'm sure they will be hopeful to pick up a win, which may prevent them from relegation. Equally, the Elves will be doing their best to secure back-to-back wins and their position in the league. With their inducements, the Guys and Ghouls purchase an extra reroll and assistant coach, but also make sure to get Ivan, Death Shroud, star player. And the ref goes for the toss, and I bet you we lose it once again. Yes, there we go. So the Guys and Ghouls win the toss and they decide to receive. Now the Elves line up in their pretty standard formation here. For myself, a pretty broad arrow on the kicking side. And from the Necromantic Horror side, they decide to line up with what I would say is a team leaning to come down the right with their star player on that side as well. And here comes the kick, which is a throw right into that back left corner. Couldn't get a more perfect kick. And we see the kickoff gives a stiletto to the flesh golem. Now the werewolf moves in to protect that ball in the corner there, and we see the first block from the wraith. Its defender stumbles. The flesh golem gets a double pow, uses his head wisely this time. We'll see how long that lasts. And then another pow from the lineman. Now that's two stunned players for the Elven Unions. Could have been a lot worse. We've seen a lot worse in this league, but that was not too bad for the Elven Union team. And Snufkinny just moving some players up, getting themselves in the position they want. And we see a blitz from the werewolf on the lineman on the left. Did not see that coming, and he gets a both down, has block, and that's a knockout. You hate to see the Elven Union players go off so early. How can they respond? We get a blitz using our blitzer on the werewolf. That is a defender stumbles into a stunned. And we use our thrower to get another 2 dice on the lineman. Another defender stumbles. Another stunned. Wow. Stunning. And then our catcher runs through into the backfield to put some pressure on Snufkinny to make a move and pick up this ball. See the lineman come across. The werewolf goes for the pickup and fumbles that right in the corner. Could have been worse. That ball could have gone off and bounced anywhere on the pitch. But that's a turnover. So what can the elves do now? So we have a few options. Quite a few of our elves aren't in base-to-base contact. There's quite a few necromantic players down. And obviously we have this catcher up by the werewolf. And what my plan was to blitz 1 dice that werewolf, get him off the pitch and pick up that ball. But for some reason, don't ask me why, the thrower goes for a blitz on that lineman. A completely pointless blitz, in my opinion. And we get our blitzer out. And now the catcher can only run up to the werewolf. Possibly should have just tried to pick up that ball. But always better in hindsight. We really fudged this turn. And that gives Snufkinny the opportunity to recover somewhat from that fumble. We see Ivan, the star player, running back. The Wraith also moving back. Another lineman also. Flesh Golem stabs our lineman, gets stunned. Then the other lineman does a 2 dice pow on our lineman. And the werewolf gets both down, re-rolls for a pushback, and then gets a pow. Now I want you guys to pay attention. There were a lot of pows from Snufkinny. Dice were really playing ball. And the werewolf picks up the ball after that blitz, and then goes for it and stumbles. He should be getting fired after this game. Now what I should have done here, once again, was take our catcher and at least pick up that ball, secure it. We have plenty of rerolls, and then move towards the touchline. Instead, we make a number of relatively nonsensical moves at this stage, or at least risky moves. We get a pushback on that Wraith, and for whatever reason, we use our Blitzer to pick up the ball. We've secured it. And now we have a dodge away with a reroll, which fails, and it's a turnover. This isn't too bad. We do have players between the Necromantic Horror and our players, but it's relatively easy for them to break through, as we're seeing. Already got Ivan in base to base. And the werewolf goes for a blitz. We do have sidestep, which we use to move away. And then it is a defender stumbles, and we use sidestep to move away because we have dodge. And we're just one step away from the touchdown. Lineman does a 1 dice, gets a pushback. That's going to be helpful. We decide to stand up this lineman and move towards the flesh golem so we can do a block. Goes for it, uses a reroll and fails that, and that's a turnover, and that is a absolute disaster for the Elven Union. Now we see Ivan come in with a blitz on the blitzer, and I thought we got a touchdown. I believe Snufkinny also thought they had a touchdown, but neither of us paying enough attention, and there was a strip ball, and the ball bounces out into the lineman's hands, much closer to the line of scrimmage. Who could have seen that happening? Have a stab from that flesh golem, failure, and then Snufkinny rolls a 2 dice, attacker down. No rerolls. But we finally get a 2 dice block on that flesh golem with a pow to stun them. And we use our catcher for a blitz on the lineman carrying the ball. Get her both down. Ball scatters. And then we're able to do a block on the werewolf, knocks them down, and our thrower dodges away to pick up the ball and secure it. And then we try and protect the thrower as best as possible with the players in reach. Now what can Snufkinny do here? Players being stood up and moving. And Ivan comes in for the blitz again, gets a push, strip ball, once again, scatters out. The werewolf goes for a block, gets frenzy, double push, but frees up the lineman to go and somehow pick up that ball. Now the lineman gets a 2 dice block on the werewolf, knocks him down, freeing up our catcher to go for a block on that lineman. 1 dice, unfortunately, just pushes him back. Then our thrower goes for a block, 1 dice on the wraith, and knocked out. Nicely surrounding that lineman with the ball. Now what can Snufkinny do to free that ball? Unlikely they're going to be able to score unless they make some good ground this turn. And we see, our blitzer gets badly hurt. We use the apothecary and no injury. But let's be honest, that's going to come back and bite us in the butt. As always. The star player and the thrower, 2 dice, both down, both have block. Now the werewolf goes for a blitz, pushes back, 2nd dice, attacker down. This is going to be the time. Now the catcher has 2 dice block on the ghoul runner, gets a defender, stumbles, has dodge, pushes back. Now it's the thrower's turn. Defender stumbles, push back once again. This ghoul runner will not go down. Move our blitzer in behind and we get our blitz from the catcher. Defender stumbles, that's 3 blocks on that ghoul runner, all with defender stumbles, all push back. This is not an ideal situation. Now the Necromantic Horror's final turn, can't score but have got to stop the Elven Union from making this. Ivan comes in with the blitz, gets a pushback on a 2 dice, not ideal. And there's another turnover, 2 dice on the lineman, gets both down. The lineman has block and it's a turnover. Now we have a 1 dice block from the blitzer, gets a pushback. We go for the blitz with our catcher. And it's an attacker down and we have no rerolls. And that is that turn over. And the half finishes and neither coach will be happy with the performance of their team. An absolute disgrace of turnovers during that. And that Elven Union team would have definitely hoped to have got a touchdown. Now we see the Necromantic Horror line up with a tight line of scrimmage. And then some of the strength 4 players over there on the right. And then the Elven Union line up, aiming to go straight down that left-hand side by the looks of it. And the kickoff goes straight into the hands of our lineman. And then a vicious ref sends off the ghoul runner. The thrower comes up and the lineman who caught the ball hands it off to the thrower. We send our lineman in for a blitz, gets a POW. Defender goes down and that gives us a 2 dice block on the last lineman on the line of scrimmage, who also goes down. And we're able to thread a couple of players into the centre of the pitch. And we've really split the Necromantic Horror team left and right, with most of our players heading down the left-hand side. We see the blitz from the werewolf on the leading lineman. Gets a defender, stumbles, no armor break, and just skips the werewolf further down the pitch. Flesh Golem comes across, the other werewolf comes over to the left hand side, and the lineman sets up another tackle zone to stop the elves. Now the elves respond by going with a blitz on that werewolf, re-rolls for a POW. The blitzer follows up and then steps one more cover that werewolf. Lineman comes into contact with the two linemen on the side. Got a 2 dice there. Now our catcher runs through. Most experienced catcher. The thrower steps up with another catcher acting as a bit of a cage. Very loose cage, in fact. Now the lineman 2 dices. Lineman on the corner there, opening up the cage. Now Snufkinny gets a defender, stumbles on the catcher, tackles him down. Ivan hits the lineman, gets a KO for that hit. And then we see the Necromantic Horror moving across. The werewolf goes for the blitz, gets a push, frenzy into a 1 dice, defender stumbles. And that's a stunned. And that's not good. That's not ideal for the elves. 2 dice from the lineman, gets a pushback. And then the elves respond by standing up. You get a blitz from our catcher on the werewolf. Gets a pushback. Not bad. Then a 2 dice on the lineman. The catcher dodges away from the flesh golem. Gets in behind. If we can knock down that werewolf, we can potentially get this ball over there. So we go for it. We get a both down, which we have block. And now the thrower throws over to the catcher, who successfully catches. And we end the turn. Now Ivan comes in for a blitz on the catcher. We know he's got strip ball. Gets a pal, doesn't need that. And the ball bounces away. A lot of pals coming. Lineman steps up, defend that ball. Another pal. And that's a death. We knew it was coming. As soon as we use the apothecary, someone always dies. The Necromantic Horror players move around. And the flesh golem moves over and goes for it. Has to re-roll to get in position. And now the elves throw some blocks. We get our lineman up and throw a 2 dice on that lineman. The zombie lineman goes down. The ball scatters but doesn't fall into a good place for the elves. We get a 1 dice on that werewolf. Defender stumbles, goes down. Then we use our catcher to get up, dodge away. What was that? 4 or 5 dodges. Goes for it twice to be within 1 step of a touchdown. Now the guys and ghouls respond, getting themselves in position. We get a defender stumbles, 2 dice against the thrower, dodges out the way. Ivan gets another pow on our blitzer. That's a stunned. Now the flesh golem goes for the blitz. Re-rolls, gets a both down, and that's not good. The catcher has block. The flesh golem goes down, and it's a turnover. Now the elven catcher runs over to the far corner, knowing none of the necromantic horror can get to it. Has to go for it, re-rolls it, and succeeds. Now the elves can make their moves without fear in this turn. Some pretty unsuccessful blocking going on. And finally, we get a success with a badly hurt. And my god, these linemen just keep on standing back up. Now, all Snufkinny can do is try and move towards that capture and hope that their elves have another disastrous turn. We get a 2 dice from the lineman on Elven Thrower. Gets a pushback. Another blitz from the werewolf. Oof. Rerolls that. Gets a push. Gonna be 2 dice once again. Gets defender stumbles. There we go. And then runs through and goes for it and falls over. And the elves run it in for a touchdown, not wishing to risk losing that touchdown. Once again, the elves line up with a broad defense, and the Necromantic Horror lines up pretty evenly. And the kick goes, and it's a high kick, not what the elves wanted, and the werewolf catches it. The Snufkinny moves their linemen forward to get into the tackle zones of those experienced players. The werewolf brings up the ball. Got 3 turns to get a touchdown. The Wraith gets a pushback on a 2 dice. Now we see the blitz from the werewolf on Thrower. Gets a pushback. And a pow. Another pow. Just knocked down this time. Flesh Golem gets a push. Brings back a lineman to give a little bit of extra protection on the werewolf before a 2 dice from Ivan. Gets a defender stumbles. Now how will the elves respond? A couple of players stood up, and then the blitz from catcher on the werewolf. Defender stumbles, goes down. That's a KO. That's a good thing because that was the stronger werewolf. We see the elves flooding to the right here. We get a 2 dice on the lineman. Defender stumbles. It looks like that is another KO. Now a 2 dice on the Wraith. Gets a pushback. Sidesteps into that fold. And then we dodge away a couple of players, reducing the blocks. Probably should have left a 2 space gap between those so the Flesh Golem couldn't just stand on both of those tackle zones. Ivan goes for a blitz, uses the pushback and then moves forward, and that allows the werewolf to come across the pitch to the left. That's going to leave some of the elves stranded, and a 2 dice on the elven lineman on the left. And that's a knockdown, and that's probably the best response Snufkinny could have had. The Wraith gets a pow, and that's a stun. So this really leaves the elves in a difficult position here. One turn to respond. We get the power on the lineman. That's good. Freeing up our catcher. Our blitzer dodges away. And we get to use our catcher for one dice blitz on the werewolf. We do have a reroll, but don't need it. We get a power. Bull scatters, and somehow Ivan catches the bull. And then we move a few players, go for a dodge, use the reroll, fails, and goes down. So it's the Necromantic Horror's last turn. And what I thought was they can get a chain push on Ivan, be able to get him into the end zone with 2 go for it and a lot of luck. So if they use the flesh golem to block our lineman, push them into that square there, then they can blitz the catcher on the corner and then get a chain push to push Ivan out, and then with that luck hopefully get down into the touchdown for a draw. Goes for the flesh golem, gets a POW, ideal, stay put, perfect. And now the werewolf stands up, but the blitz doesn't come from the lineman. We get a block from the other lineman, and it's a turnover. And that's the end of the game. I really thought Snufkinny was going to get the luck, but the elves come out victorious with a 1-0 win, and that pushes them back up the table. And unfortunately, Snufkinny still does not have that win in this league.